Bumpgate. We're going to get into the controversy about Meghan's pregnancy and subsequent birth of Archie from two authors' point of view, Lady C and Tom Bower. Now, I'm not going to get into tabloid speculation. I'm not going to get into anything outside of these two books. One thing that surprised me about Lady C's book was I expected her to come down quite firmly on the side of the fact that Meghan was faking her pregnancy. I thought that that's what would be in her book, but it's not. It's she brings up the very interesting point that at the time when these rumours first started to come up and appear, that they were the realm of the conspiracy theorist, and that Lady C does not consider herself a conspiracy theorist, so she paid them no heed at all. But she did make the point that as these rumours sort of increased and as it sort of more was said about it and there was more rumblings, and she was actually asked questions about it by reporters and things, she makes the really interesting point that the palace was completely aware of this and they were watching it. They were watching to see if it was going to gain any traction, because they didn't want it to gain traction, because then they'd have to start trying to put out fires and everything. So she said that the interest from it was purely from the perspective that it was not necessary. All this speculation wasn't necessary, and it was being caused by Meghan persisting and clutching her belly a lot. There were two main sort of feeders of these rumours about the fact that it wasn't a real pregnancy. And the two main feeders of the rumours, according to Lady C's book, were that it was thought by some people that Meghan was too big for, well, I suppose her first baby, and also too big for the fact of only having one child. And she seemed to be too big at the wrong time, or like suddenly or whatever. I think the most striking one was when she made the appearance at the Fashion Awards, and she was wearing that gorgeous off-the-shoulder black gown, and she was touching her belly a lot. And, you know, there were two reactions at the time. One of the reaction was, well, isn't that lovely? She's a modern mum and she knows the importance of touch, and she knows the importance of nurturing her child in the womb. And maybe the child was kicking a lot, and so she was nurturing it in the womb. And then the other train of thought was, why is she always clutching and holding onto her belly? Is she trying to hold something in place? And that sort of feeling and sentiment started to grow. Now, I am not coming down on either side of any debate. I'm not bringing personal opinions into this. I'm reiterating to you what was in Lady C's book. And her main concern wasn't whether it was true or not true. Her main concern was that it was presenting a problem for the palace, and that Harry and Meghan must have been aware of the problem it was presenting, and yet they weren't taking advice and they weren't taking steps to lessen it. But the palace sort of started to relax a little bit as the pregnancy progressed, because they thought, well, you know what? It's all going to be proven that she's really pregnant and really had a baby when she goes into the hospital, have it. And the royal tradition was to go in and have a baby at St Mary's, Paddington. And the advantage of that is it produces some transparency, because you can name who the attending gynecologists and obstetricians are. It's very transparent. They're obviously senior consultants at the hospital, so it's easily verified, easily, you know, any rumour would be put to rest. But then Harry and Meghan put a spanner in the works, because they insisted on keeping all their obstetricians and gynecologists and everything completely private. And so those natural checks and balances couldn't happen. So there was a lot of palaver, like it really mattered, and it was a very difficult situation to navigate. And Lady C points out that she was actually asked many times by different journalists about her opinion about the whole thing, and that she avoided comment very wisely. And then you've got Tom Bower, where he doesn't go there. He doesn't go there. But he does go there as far as the fact that they wanted to keep the birth private and all the secrecy around that, and even the fact that when the baby was actually born, you know, there was a delay in announcing it and all that sort of thing. And his take on that is that Meghan had entered a solid agreement with Gayle King and Oprah Winfrey that they were going to do a documentary on her first year of being a royal and also the subsequent birth of Archie. And we can see that with the first photo of Archie, because it was only the CBS that was allowed in for that actual meeting with the Queen and Prince Philip and Doria and Harry and Meghan proudly showing off little baby Archie. So it's interesting that Tom Bower doesn't go there, but he does say why he thinks there was that demand for privacy. He thinks that there was commercial considerations that were driving that. So we'll never really know. We'll never really know. This is a sort of a modern day Shakespearean drama. And this is what interests me so much about it. Sometimes I get some snarky comments, you know, saying that, oh, you know, you're only motivated by money and you're only motivated by views. Well, I am motivated by views in this way. It's so good to tell a story to people that are appreciating the story that you're telling. It makes it exciting and interesting, because if I'm reviewing books and no one's watching or listening, it can get a little lonely. So that's why this story is so fascinating, because so many people are intrigued, and that's what makes it fun. And the other thing I wanted to tell you before I go, after we finish with Bumpgate, is there is no secret meaning to my bookcase. I've had comments asking me what does that book display mean? And I think it was around the time. I did not time it. I run a vintage bookstore, and so I grab stock that hasn't sold and I bung it up the back, or I just rearrange what's in my shelves, because some of these I'll never sell because I like them and they're mine. So there's no rhyme or reason to it. I'm just trying to provide a bit of colour and something to look at when I get boring. And around the time that it was announced that Harry and Meghan were going to do that gender thing with their charity, Archwell, I'd chosen that day to display all my old girl and boy annuals. If I ever had a statement to make about anything, I'll make the statement. I won't make it via book covers, I assure you. So on that note, I'll say bye-bye for now, and I can't wait to see you again very, very soon. Bye.